Hi guys, and welcome to today's video where today I'm giving you an update on all of my leopard geckos. So I think it was at the beginning of the year I did like a big update, and I thought it'd be cool to do one at the end to just sort of talk you through what they've been through this year and how they're all doing. So I thought we'd start off with the eldest of my geckos, Gizmo, who turned 16 years old this year, which is insane. So actually this year's been pretty good for Gizmo in terms of egg production because she hasn't produced any. She didn't go off her food in spring or summer, she didn't lose weight, and yeah, she is doing amazing. So it's like the first time since she was about 7, I think, when she laid her first egg, that she hasn't produced any eggs. I don't think geckos go through the menopause, but if there is one, then maybe Gizmo has gone through one. But yeah, it's been really good in that sort of sense. She's just gonna pancake on my hand there. Now throughout this video I am gonna answer your questions from Instagram. So the first question is, when did she lay her first egg, which I just sort of stated was when she was about 7. Might have been 6 or 7, maybe 8. I know a lot of people have geckos who are 2, 3, 4 years old and they're like, but my gecko doesn't lay any eggs, and that's fine. Like, there can be multiple things that can trigger it. And you may have a female gecko who never lays eggs. You may have a female gecko who lays eggs when she's only 1. It really can vary, but yeah, Gizmo was a little late to it. The next question is, since she's a senior, how often do you feed her and how active is she? She still gets fed the same amount as she always has and the same as every other gecko. Also, she is probably the least active. I mean, she can still get around absolutely fine. She's just gonna walk off my hand right now. She has a branch in her enclosure which she'll climb up, but she does have her favourite sort of areas where she'll sit. So in the corner of her tank there's this big hide that she absolutely loves, which gets nice and warm. In the evening time she'll hang out on her cork. She blends in so well to that cork as well, so sometimes it can be difficult to see. And then she has this cold hide that she decides is her toilet, so that's nice. And the third question is, what is her most mischievous achievement? So, when she was about a year, maybe less than a year old, obviously I lived with my family at the time, I was 13, and her tank was in the kitchen. One evening, I don't think I shut the door quite right, came back to look and she wasn't in there. She'd walked off the kitchen side and dropped in a box of Daz. Now, if you don't know, that's like laundry detergent, the powder type. And she was absolutely fine. If anything, it cushioned the fall. I don't know if she licked any, but it had no ill effect on her. She has literally never had to go to the vets. She has been fabulous ever since. Would not recommend, but yeah, she did that. Then we have Maui, the youngest of my leopard geckos, the one you've probably seen since I got him, which when he was tiny. He is still as active as he was then, but he's a lot bigger now. Last time I checked he was about 90 grams. So you can imagine that, like, when he's trying to navigate around and move quickly, he's got a little bit of weight to him. I have seen a lot of people say to me, like, I got a gecko around the same time as you, or maybe it's younger and it's really quick and it doesn't sit on me like your other geckos do. It's a young gecko, it's full of energy, and obviously I can handle him a bit better when I'm not filming because I'm obviously trying to keep him in focus and all of that. But he is still quick and there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to have a gecko full of energy. It's just he's got a lot bigger now. But yeah, overall he's doing really well. He adapted to living in an 80-gallon 3-foot-long tank really easily. Obviously he got that a lot younger than all my other geckos because he was about 1 year old when he moved in. So to raise him on like UV, deep heat projector, natural supplements, and in an 80-gallon tank, all from a young age, it'd be really cool to see in the long run how that sort of benefits him. So, a tiny sparrow asks, when will Maui be fully grown? He is fully grown now. I guess he's probably soon coming up for 2 years old. But yeah, he is 90 grams. He could potentially reach Diego's weight at some point, but I think this is a healthy weight, as you can see on him, so I would say he's fully grown now. Then we have, is there something about Maui that surprised you at first? So I guess the way his colours changed. He was quite a bright coloured baby, and then he went to kind of whitish grey. So it looks like he looks dusty basically. So Diego is obviously an albino gecko as well, but his sort of undertones, I guess, are white, whereas Maui's are grey, and so he can kind of give off that greyish dusty look. So the way his pattern developed did surprise me. Then Cal asks, Maui looks so different, such as his smaller eyes. Is this a newer trait in leopard geckos? I'm not sure if there's a specific reason. If I find anything online, I'll pop it on the screen now. But yes, he definitely does have small eyes. Like, his eyes just stopped growing. Like, he has tiny eyes. But you do see that, like, some leopard geckos have massive eyes, and I guess it's just what traits they're sort of bred for. So maybe his parents did have smaller eyes, whereas if you were aiming for a leopard gecko with bigger eyes, you would breed two geckos with bigger eyes if it was like a recessive trait. But yeah, there's no good rhyme or reason, he just has tiny eyes. Next we have Minnie, who is 15 years old, my leopard gecko. So Minnie's had an alright year. I mean, most years with the female geckos we have issues like lots of eggs, weight loss and all of that sort of stuff. She did of course lose a bit of weight, and from what I can tell she laid 2 eggs, which is actually quite a low amount, which I'm happy about. I didn't want her going through that, but it was just the 2 that I found. So basically I found one in her hide and I was like, oh cool, she laid an egg. Usually they come in 2s, sometimes another one will come a bit later. I didn't see another one, and then I was scooping her poop because she decides to poop up on the ledge, and in this little divot in the ledge was an egg. So I imagine she thought she was going to go to the toilet, went up to where she would normally, you know, push one out, and an egg came out. So as far as I can tell, and I've searched through her tank, there's only been 2 eggs this year, which I'm happy about. She is gaining weight. She is the smallest of my leopard geckos, but I'm pretty happy with the rate in which she is putting back on that weight. So the questions for Minnie, Jen asked, where did her name come from? Was she a tiny baby? So actually her mum was called Minnie. Her and Gizmo have the same mum and dad. Her mum was called Minnie, her dad was called Mickey. Originally I was going to call her Tiny as like a little sort of like, oh, her mum was Minnie, she's tiny, but it didn't really suit her, and Minnie suited her, and I thought it was a nice way to sort of remember her mum. Amez asked, how is Minnie's eye? Is it ever going to get better, or will it stay like that? So if you didn't know, I did do a video on this a while ago, which I'll link. Minnie has a dodgy eye, and this is something she was born with. I think another question asks, how did you know Minnie had a bad eye? Well, from a hatchling, like as soon as she came out, she had a bad eye, and you can see in some of her baby photos. And I remember the breeder saying to me, look, if you don't want her, I understand. Well, of course I wanted her. So I was like, no, that's fine. And it was tricky in the beginning because she was a baby, and you can imagine trying to clean a baby's eye with like skin in it and everything. And then she would get stuck shed on her tail, and she's just this baby who's scared of everything at this point. So it was a bit stressful at the beginning, but after all these years, we've got really used to it. You can literally like touch her eye. It's closed at the moment, but she doesn't really flinch. Like if you did that to another leopard gecko, they'd probably react more. The vet was saying how good she is with her eye being touched, and there's actually no damage on the surface of her eye. But I do think it's something that would progressively get worse, but because it's got sort of very slowly worse, she has adapted to it, so there is sort of a blur over the pupil, and I imagine it feels like if you've ever wore contact lenses and you take one out, so there's like a blur and then a clear. That's what I imagine her eyesight is. But yeah, overall it doesn't seem to bother her. Of course I do tend to hand feed her more than the other geckos, but yeah, she does really well. And finally we have Diego. So Diego, you know, having a male gecko is pretty similar throughout the year, not too much changes, though we did have his weight loss video go up this year. So I was talking about how he's always been like a big gecko. He's always between 95 and 105 grams. It's just normal for him. But there are a few reasons I thought, actually, I think we need to reduce his intake a little bit. He gets fed the exact same as everyone else, but to give you an idea of how much geckos' weights can vary, his max is 105 grams. Gizmo's max is probably 60 grams, Minnie's max is maybe 50, and Maui's is 90. So it can really vary even though they're eating the exact same amount of food. So he did lose a bit of weight. He probably has gained it back a little bit. He does occasionally get these little armpit boobs, which I've spoken about in the past. He's my only gecko to ever get those, so I think part of it is genetic. That's my theory, because once again, they're on the same diet, so it must be the way the body processes it. But yeah, Diego's doing really well, and if you've seen a video where all the geckos react to my voice, you'll see that he loves to just wait at his door in the evening for me, and it's really, really cute. He's also 11 years old now, which is crazy, which actually moves me on to my first question. What did he look like when he was young? He basically looked like Diego with slightly less pattern and a lot more yellow. If you didn't know, generally babies are a lot brighter than they are as adults. They tend to lose a bit of their colour, but actually Diego's holding up quite well. I have noticed though some of his brown patterns on his head kind of have gone a bit purple. I don't know if that's an age thing. Another question from Cody says, does he get grumpy when you touch him on the head? No, he doesn't seem to mind it. He has a really massive head and I just boop him on it sometimes, like softly, little stroke on the head. Doesn't seem to mind it. And Nathan says, if memory serves me right, Diego is albino. What lighting do you use and what time are they on for? So he is albino. He uses the same UV system as all of my geckos, so the shade dweller 7%. To be honest, I feel like as long as you give your geckos enough room to move closer and move further away from the UV within a safe distance, places to hide is important, they can then choose how much or how little they want to expose themselves to. Obviously with most leopard geckos, he cryptic basks, so he might put out a leg or a tail, a head, or maybe nothing at all. It depends what he needs. He has thin skin, he's not like a bearded dragon, so he doesn't need to expose himself to UV too much to get what he needs. But yeah, we just use the same UV system as the other geckos. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today's little update. Let me know in the comments below how your geckos are doing. I'd love to know. I know a lot of them you got a similar time as me, or they're a similar age as my geckos. I always love to hear how they're doing. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. But thank you for watching, guys, and goodbye.